Here's a few of the things we have to do to get ready for winter in northern Michigan. The first thing we're going to do is blow out all of our hoses. So I have this little adapter I bought on Amazon. You simply screw this on to the end of the hose and attach some compressed air. And what this is going to do is blow out all the water out of your hose. That way it doesn't freeze your hose and mess anything up. The other thing this does is if you disconnect the hose from your bib, if I do need water anytime in the winter for some reason, in case I need to run the hose to fill my boiler or something like that, I can pull out the hose, connect it, and use it, and it's not going to be all frozen up, so I can use it throughout the winter, and then I can just drain it back out, do this exact same thing, and I'm going to be able to use it whenever I want, and it's not going to be all frozen up. So we're just going to let this run a little bit. It blew out all the water. It's just blowing through the air, and as simple as that. You can get these adapters for either side. It really doesn't matter which end you put it on. Has a gasket, connects simply to your quick connect, so you're going to blow out all the air. So we're going to go around and do some of the other things that we need to do before winter comes. One of the other things I like to do is put these driveway markers in. We get a lot of snow here, so I put these in on either side of the driveway, about a foot off, and I paste this off so I have plenty of them installed. You have to get these in the ground, obviously, before it's frozen. So we get these in so we can see where we're plowing. And you may ask yourself, well, geez, Eric, I kind of know where my driveway is. Why do I need these? I didn't have these installed for about the first 8 years I had this property, until one year, the first snow that we had was a foot thick. So I got out in the truck and I thought I knew where the driveway was. And in reality, where I thought and where it was were two different things. So I actually was off the driveway and into the yard by about 6 feet, and I had to have the neighbor come pull me out. So I started installing these the next year, so I knew exactly where it was. So no matter what snowfall we had, that I was never going to be off the road. So just in case, or somebody else comes and plows, you know, which has happened before, you have something wrong with your truck, nobody's confused on where the driveway actually is. Or it snows and the bus is coming and you got a little bit of snow on the ground. Whatever the case may be, for $2 a piece, I think these cost, that it's just easy insurance to know where you're plowing. So I get these installed. I got them done last week because now the ground's starting to harden up. So I get these installed all the way down the driveway, and there's no question where you're at. So get these in, and you'll be a lot happier for it. And put them anywhere where there might be an obstruction in the yard. So I put them next to where my well casing sticks out of the ground, and I also put them where the risers come for the risers stick out of the ground for the septic tank. All right, another thing that we have to do that I overlooked the first year because I put it off. I had this little decorative pond that I set up with an old stock tank, and my wife's grandparents' old pitcher pump. I didn't drain the water out. So the first year I didn't do that. It split the bottom out. I had to get a new tank, and just caused more work for me. So make sure if you have any decorative ponds or anything like that, systems like this, they need to be drained out. Drain that out, don't put it off because it's going to freeze. You're going to be chipping it out. Or if you have something like this, you can get a tank heater, so get one appropriately sized. So for me, there's no fish in here. It just has, it's just for fun. It kind of creates a good little ambiance when you're sitting out here. So make sure, get a pump or something set up, and we're just going to plug this in. Let this run. I know it's probably going to take half hour or so, so we're just going to let the water run out and go on to the next project. Another thing that we're preparing for is power outages. Last year, we had a power outage that lasted us 5 days. We lucked out that was on the tail end of the year, but we were still out of power. We had to run the generator. What I did because of that storm was get a newer generator that uses both gasoline and propane. So I'm just going to show you quick what we have set up and what you kind of need to keep in mind in case you're looking at a generator. This is the first generator that I had. This is actually as old as I am. This is one that I got from my mom from when we were babies. So things to keep in mind, that if you're not running all the time, which you should be doing, but if you aren't, you need to, all these generators are going to have, right next to your choke is going to be your fuel cutoff. If you're not running it, make sure you put the fuel supply off and let the carburetor run out of fuel, so there's no gas sitting in the carburetor to mess things up. That's going to help out a lot with the carburetor life, that things aren't getting gunked up. But in all reality, you should be firing them things up once a month ideally, or every couple months if you're not doing it that often. Today I hadn't run it in a couple months, truthfully, so it did take a little sniff of starting fluid to get it running, but got it fired up. And what we're going to do with all the ones that we're running gas on, we're going to top them off and put some fuel stabilizer in there. But another thing that I like to do is to make sure I keep extra spark plugs, oil, make sure I have a funnel, because some of them plugs are really kind of goofy or they're hard to get the oil in. So make sure I have a little funnel for that, and we keep all of our cords with it too. Onto the generator that we ran last year. I ran this thing for 5 days straight. I wasn't even shutting it off. I was hot refueling it the whole time. Ran like a champ. I really lucked out with this one, but this is gasoline only. So again, it's a little bit of a different shut off. There's no mechanism on the carburetor to shut it off. So what you have to do, there's actually a shut off, what they call a petcock, underneath the tank. So that gets shut down, but the same mechanism, there's a little valve down here that we shut that off as it's running to make sure the carburetor doesn't have fuel stored in it while we're not using it. So I turn that on, pull the choke, this fired up right away. This does hold a significant more amount of fuel in it. So we're gonna make sure again that we top that off and put the stabilizer in it before we store it for the winter. This is the newer one that I have. I am switching this one to, it can run gasoline or propane. And I'd have to check the manual again, but there's something that you got to switch on here to go between either, because it doesn't run them both at the same time. But right now it's set up for propane. It does come with the hose. And the reason I did get this one, this bigger gasoline generator, it runs, I think this is a 10 horsepower engine. And for my wife, it's really a bear to try to get started. So I went with this one. One of the nicer features, it has an electric start. So really anybody, even the kids, could get it fired up if they had to. So again, we're storing our cords. With this one, the other key thing for the way we had the house set up now is running the 240 plug. So this uses a twist lock plug. So the last thing you want to do in a power outage, you want to get your generator set up and you can't find this cord. Maybe you got an RV or something that's out with RV. Keep these two together. You don't want to be looking for one while you really want to get the power going. So again, make sure everything's all running fine. The nice thing with the propane is that unlike the gasoline, you really don't have to worry about the carburetors getting gummed up, as far as I understand. The other thing, propane, there's indefinite lifespan as far as storage goes. There's no stabilizers or anything else. You can have this can, as long as you keep it out of the elements, and like the only thing that would degrade this is if the tank actually rusted through or something punctured the tank. So these will store forever. So we just fired this up and it's running good. So we just want to make sure we check over all of our generators, make sure they're running, top them all off, stabilize them, and that they're good to go. So the last thing that we're going to show for our gasoline generators, because like I said, I ran this thing for 5 days straight, we did eat through quite a bit of fuel. So you might ask yourself, in a worst case scenario, like in a winter storm, you can't leave the house, you're snowed in. If you only have 1 or 2 of these 5 or 6 gallon containers, you're kind of going to be shit out of luck. You're going to be doing one of those scenarios where you're trying to keep the freezer going. So you're going to run it for a couple hours. The furnace might be running, the freezer's going to be going, and then you're going to have to shut it off for a few hours. And you're going to have to constantly be running it on and off. In our case, my wife works from home, so we needed our Starlink up. The computer's running, like we had power all the time to keep everything going. I was running my boiler at the time too, so the pump had to be circulating all the time. So it was going all the time. So what we do, we got this method from Jack Spirko over at the Survival Podcast. We actually run a series of cans. So I am a little bit behind on my rotation. So this is number 6. So this should be the 6th month. Like I said, I'm behind on my rotation. So what you do is you get 12 cans for your gas, and every month you just cycle those out. So you dump it into your truck or car and then just go fill that can back up. That way, I like using these 6 gallon cans. So you have 12 cans at 6 gallons. You have a pretty good supply of fuel. So now that I have a tractor to run too, I actually have 12 cans of diesel as well. And those are only available in a 5 gallon configuration. And then to stabilize it, most people use Stable. It was recommended to me to use PRI. So for the diesel, it's PRID, and that's what we use for our diesel. And then it's PRIG for the gasoline. And I've had very good luck with this stuff. I did have a couple of these cans that got set to the side and forgotten about. I've had some of these sitting for 2 years using this PRIG. and I put it in the truck, and I've had zero issues. And I'm using only these plastic cans. I know some people like the metal jerry cans, but these plastic cans are cheap and easy for us to get locally, so that's just what I go with. So I'm happier with this stuff, the PRI. So we're just gonna make sure we top off these tanks, put the PRI in them, and we're gonna be good to go for our fuel and make sure our generators are all set to go too. All right, we're just finishing up fueling up this generator. One of the things I was gonna mention, I really don't think it can be overstated on having enough funnels around the property. It seems like every time when I had just a couple funnels, I just could never find one. So they're cheap enough. I keep a bunch of these around. So we got that filled up. On this PRI, the graduation marks on here just aren't really great because it's showing doing I think it's 16 gallons at a time, so I have to make my own marks. So we're just going to make sure we fill this up. This is about a 7-gallon tank, so I'm kind of eyeballing where I think it needs to be. So we're just going to dump that in there. I'll slosh it around a little bit, and we'll go on to the next one. One of the things I wanted to mention, one of the other reasons why I ended up going with this propane, aside from it being nicer, having an electric start, I did have a larger propane tank, a 500-gallon tank set at the house, and I needed the propane tank. They set the tank and they run the line to the house, and they needed an HVAC company to set the regulator and all that stuff. I actually needed to have it moved, so I had an HVAC company come out, set new lines, and set the regulator on the house. So I had the HVAC company actually tee off of the regulator that's on the house, so in the future I could stub out for an output for the generator. So if you are set up kind of out in the country like us and you have a tank set out, that's something to consider, getting that set up so you're able to use the propane supply that you already have. So, this is a 20-pound tank, and that's a 500-gallon tank. So there's considerably more propane set up in that tank, so you could run this generator for quite a long time. Then your considerations are more on making sure you're getting oil changes and air filters and things like that for the amount of time that you have for your run time, for the amount of fuel that you have. One of the other things to consider too, I do have 3 generators here, and I actually have another one that we're going to probably show in a different video. You might think this is a little bit overkill. So I kind of like going by the model, that 2 is 1 and 1 is none, that I always like having a backup. So the other thing, having 3, that if you have your own backup, then the third one, might be able to be, somebody, your neighbor doesn't have one, or a relative, family member, you're able to get it to them. You have something to loan out. So the little Honda here would be my loaner. That's not going to power your whole house or, majority of the house like I'm doing, but that would be something set up to where if someone's able to keep their freezer or refrigerator, they're not going to lose all the meat or all the food that they have in there. That could be hundreds of dollars that they're going to save by not losing all their food. So something just as simple as that, on having a backup that you're maintaining, that you're able to loan out. So that's just something else to consider too. That's a minimal cost to keep maintenance up on that could really be a benefit to somebody else, or it could really be a benefit. So there's just some things to consider. So make sure you're out on your property, making sure, checking over. I might have missed something, and in your area you might not have to consider certain things like this, but you might have underground water lines that you have to blow out. So maybe that's something to consider. That little adapter that we had, you can put that on the hose bib and open everything out and blow it out. Or if you have anything else that you want to tell me, like, hey Eric, maybe you got to think about this, put it in the comments and let me know something that I'm not thinking about. So get out there, make sure you're all squared away for winter. We're having snow actually in the forecast for later on this week. So we'll see you guys on the next video. Make sure if you like it, hit the like button and subscribe.